Hello, this is Rob and Mike from the McClellan Financial Group of Asante Capital Management, and this is ThinkSmart with TMFG.
Have you ever heard of the story of the Cobbler's children that had no shoes?
Absolutely.
What does that make you think of?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Last night, my wife and I were driving down to the Raptors game, which they won, of course, and I was discussing with her that it was time for us to have a look at our powers of attorney for wealth and health. The last time we updated them was 2013, and I was looking at my own will schematic and saw that it was actually family members, my brother-in-law and Ingrid's sister, who were our powers of attorney for wealth and health. And I thought, you know what? Our eldest is now 23 years old, to be 24 this summer. The middle one's 22, and the youngest is 17, soon to be 18. And they're all adults. You know, the youngest will soon be able to vote in this country. So why wouldn't I have them as powers of attorney? And there's 3 of them. So if they can't make a decision, there's at least a tiebreaker mechanism in the process.
Yeah, you hold off until you realize the kids have their heads on straight. And once you get to that stage where they're starting to get in their 20s, they understand life. And if they're doing a good job in life, it's time to go and get them involved in this.
Absolutely. It was interesting. So Ingrid then said to me, you know, we've done pretty well over the years. And I said, you know, it's not because of some big home run that we've hit or anything like that. I've really just put in place following the advice that we've constantly given to clients over the years. And I've made sure that if I'm telling someone to do something, that I'm doing the exact same thing.
What are some examples?
Well, probably the biggest is I've never, had a lump sum of money to invest. I've just done it monthly. Even when I started in the business, I started, with $50 a month going into my RSP. And over the years, I've maximized the RSP by doing it every month. I've never put lump sums in. I've done that for Ingrid as well. Then we started with, when we had kids, we started with the RESP, and we've been putting the maximum in there and getting the government grant.
It's funny, we've talked about it over the years, and even now it comes up. Everyone's so envious of the teacher's pension plan. It's not a miracle. It's just constant investing. Teachers put into their pension plan every year. And it doesn't matter if they just bought a house. It doesn't matter if they just had a kid. It doesn't matter if they had a car accident that's cost them a bunch of money. They can't stop that contribution. And we realized early on that that's what makes the teacher's pension plan and these other pension plans, government pension plans, so successful, is that they have to contribute. We find in the past, clients have run into issues in their life and they say, I want to stop my RSP. Worst thing you can do.
Absolutely. The other interesting thing is, following the advice, I look at my returns once, twice a year, but I actually don't worry about it if it's not that good. Even when it's negative, I don't really worry about it because I know the investment strategy is sound. And as long as I just keep putting money in every month, it's going to work out. I'm reading letters that Warren Buffett writes to his shareholders, and he talks about how, over the next 5 years, if you're a buyer in the market, would you rather the market go down or up? And the reality is you'd rather the market go down because you're buying great companies at cheaper prices, which is really all dollar cost averaging is, buying good investments at low prices.
It's funny when I see that, the biggest dollar cost averaging thing I've seen in my portfolio is RESPs. I'm looking now, and my kids are 15 and 13, and I think that I'll have their full university paid for before they get there.
Well, you think that, but actually you may be surprised how expensive university education is. I've got one out in Vancouver, which isn't cheap to live, and one headed to Dalhousie. I don't know why my kids want to go across the country. Yep. But you're right. It has made a dramatic impact because we've had enough to pay for that post-secondary education.
Yeah, In most cases, if you started from day one and you have it going with dollar cost averaging every month, you'll pretty much cover 80% to 90%. There may be a little bit left over, but you'll be pretty close to doing that. Even I use the education calculator the other day, and I went and moved my kids' RESP to a more conservative mix. My son's now 15. And I went and put their ages in, saw what came up, and I just adjusted my portfolio to match their ages.
Makes complete sense. Some of the other things where I've followed the advice that I think was interesting, when we bought our current house, which was over 20 years ago, I took on a big mortgage. We took on a big mortgage, and
at that time,
it was big. I mean, I think it was $400,000, which at the time seemed huge. Yep. And we only had maybe 20% down on the place. What was interesting is, obviously, I made my mortgage payments, but every so often, if I had money in the bank, I would double up a payment, probably once a year. And then every year, I would go and increase the amount I was paying by 10%. So if I was paying, $1,500 a month, I may increase it to, $1,650 a month. And initially, when I would do that, I'd be scared, am I going to be able to make this work, and so on. And by the end of the year, things would work.
It's funny when you look at amortization schedules, because you look at them very differently at the beginning as to the end. So when you look at the difference between a 25-year amortization, and if you double up your payments every now and again, or make at least weekly or biweekly payments, you can knock it down to 21 years. It doesn't seem like a big deal when you're starting this off. But when you're 15, 16 years down the road, and instead of having 10 years left on your mortgage, you have 6, that becomes a big deal.
Absolutely. Suddenly you're mortgage free on the house, and in our case, we were able to start, with a mortgage on a cottage and start that whole process. A couple of other things that I've found that have worked pretty well, and we preach this to clients again, which is, let's review that plan. Not, once every 5 years or even 3 years, every 12 to 18 months, have a look at that plan. I have actually gone and looked at our own plan every year for the last, 25 years. And it works. It's amazing. And you make little tweaks and adjustments and put it away and don't look at it for 12 months.
The most misunderstood thing I find in most people's case is inflation. And again, a lot of people have a set payment in their mind, and they make more money. They keep on, their career goes on, and they're making, 50% more, 100% more, and they leave their savings where it is. But the problem is their lifestyle is expanding with their salaries. And that's one thing also. You have to increase your payments every year. Every year, if you're saving $1,000 a month one year, the next year you should be trying for $1,100 a month. It's got to be constantly adjusted to your new lifestyle.
So that's funny you say that. I reached out to our eldest, Eric, and he is in, I guess he's been working now a year and a half, and he's done quite well. I'm pleased to say that he has more than doubled his income. He didn't start with much, but he's more than doubled his income. And so I reached out to him with a text, and I said, have you increased your monthly savings? And he said, no, I really haven't. In fact, I've got money sitting in the bank. And so we had to go through the discussion of how every time you get a raise and you start making more money, you need to pay yourself first. And so again, following the basic advice. Anything else?
I mean, there's the obvious one. I assume you've always taken care of your RSPs and maximize those tax-free savings accounts. They're almost a given, right?
Even the TFSA, so it launched January 1st, 2009, and if you remember, that was the bottom of the market. And I actually borrowed that time $5,000 to put into my tax-free savings contribution. It was one of the few stock investments that I've made over the years. I put it into Royal Bank when the stock was at its lowest. And that $5,000 is now worth over $20,000, believe it or not, from just that one investment.
Yep.
I haven't made many stock investments since then. I stick to the, Dimensional's global equity portfolio and have 95% of my investments all in the same fund.
Yep.
What about taxes?
Taxes.
Have you ever done your own tax return?
No. I wish I could. I've done simple ones for kids and things before, but as soon as you get into it, it's more complicated than you realize, because it's not that you don't know what you're missing, and that's the big thing, right? You can get something back from the government that says you're fine and you think you did a great job on your taxes, but you don't know on the other side what you could have saved.
Well, that's it. Some people will say that, well, I'm getting money back. It's great. And I said, well, maybe that's not so good. You've had your money with the government for the past 12 months. Maybe you should have had that money sitting in your investments or in your bank account at least.
Yeah, having a professional prepare your tax returns, I think, is, unless it's extraordinarily simple with absolutely nothing on it, but as soon as you have any type of complication whatsoever, you need a professional to do that.
So I think that's a pretty good review for today of, practicing what you preach. There's a reason why we try and deliver consistent advice to our clients, and you and I really believe in following that approach for our families. This is Rob and Mike with ThinkSmart with TMFG from the McClellan Financial Group of Asante Capital Management.
You have been listening to the McClellan Financial Group of Asante Capital Management Limited. Asante Capital Management Limited is a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and Investment Industry Regulatory Organization of Canada. Insurance products and services are provided through Asante Estate and Insurance Services Incorporated. This material is provided for general information and is subject to change without notice. Every effort has been made to compile this material from reliable sources, however, no warranty can be made as to its accuracy or completeness. Before acting on any of the above, please make sure to see a professional advisor for individual financial advice based on your personal circumstances.